people who are watching a great show, Killing Eve Season 1, BBC America, who aren't going to come to BBC One, either because they don't have the network, AMC is more broadly distributed, or people tend to have a set suite of networks they watch in their media diet in a bundle. So some of this is through really smart analytical work that the team is doing to understand where the opportunity is. Some of it, to be honest, is a bit of a wild west of experimentation. And we're learning, we get smarter at it as we go along. Our data tools get smarter the more we do, we get smarter. So it's exciting. I mean, I think that, the proof was in the pudding of Killing Eve to be the fastest growing show in all of television over the past 3 years is kind of amazing. I mean, so we grew, I think it was 89% total viewers and 85% adults 25-54. Do you know how much, not to put you on the spot, do you know how much Game of Thrones grew in its last season?
I don't think it was maybe in the low 2 digits, but it was like 12 or something?
Yeah. Really, really good, 13%, yeah. We passed 2%. But, so we grew 85% adults 25-54, Game of Thrones grew 13%. So I think that, to me, and I think 5 shows have grown this year out of all of the returning shows. So to me, that's a successful thing to have done. And then we did something else that I thought was equally fascinating, if not as splashy, which was a show called Discovery of Witches, which is, I don't know if it's played in Canada, but it's a Sky Channel show in the UK, and Sky distributes it through WME internationally. Our very smart programmers on Shudder and Sundance Now spotted it, bought it for that streaming service, but also took linear rights. It did very, very well when it launched on Sundance Now and Shudder, and also I put it on AMC Premiere, so 3 direct-to-consumer services within our company. It did so well that we put it on, had the creative legs and the clear audience engagement to also put it on our linear channels. So that was a really interesting trajectory. We put it on after Killing Eve. It was this so it was a female-focused block of 2 hours. Discovery of Witches is genre, it's a vampire who falls in love with a witch, it's Matthew Dowd, it's sort of splashy and posh and kind of wonderful, and it's shot in Oxford and Venice and these gorgeous locations. So we sort of judged that it had good legs, and it increased prime average in a nice way on BBC America, did well on AMC. So we're going to be looking at doing quite a lot more. Of course, the question that comes up, and maybe your next one, is how do you retain the distinct nature of the brands? And that is something that's important to us. Our brands will continue to have distinct programming reach, distinct creative filters. Something like IFC, Documentary Now, which is, has anybody seen Documentary Now? People are their fans. I mean, Documentary Now is a small show on linear television, but does it punch outside its way in terms of love and critical acclaim. I think it was the highest rated critical comedy this year until Fleabag 2 came along. But that's okay, that's good company. So something like that is we see that very much as an IFC show. Something like Doctor Who on BBC America feels like a very distinctive BBC show. State of the Union, which is a Sundance thing, which we'll talk about a little later, I think. Actually was on Sundance Now and Sundance. But we continue to sort of program for our individual brands, and we continue to look for those moments where there is non-duplicative intersection of audience and brand. And I think AMC Networks is an interesting network group. I suspect if we'd been honest 10 or 15 years ago, we'd probably have said that we wished we had more networks in the fat cable bundle. One was rewarded for it. We only had 5. We continue to only have 5, and I think today we feel quite smart to only have 5 networks. And the nice thing I think about the 4 that I oversee is that there is a distinction, but equally a really nice synergy between those brands, so between Sundance and BBC America and AMC and IFC. You can imagine there's nice connective tissue as well as nice distinction.
As someone who came out of marketing, do you have, even just internally for yourself, sort of words associated with each brand or yes or no questions associated with each brand that help you make these decisions and make these distinctions?
Well, IFC is sort of somewhat easier and has a really nicely and tightly defined brand, which I have, the only thing for me to do is not mess it up since I've inherited that brand. They have a filter that they call Slightly Off, and it's an approach to comedy which is sort of smart and different and super serves underserved audiences. So Portlandia was probably their most brand-defining show for a long time. They work with incredible talent, Fred Armisen and Seth Meyers and Bill Hader, and amazing people. A lot of passion projects. So projects. This is a little bit of a theme across the company. I would say projects that maybe didn't get picked up somewhere else, that someone else overlooked. I think in our company we were very good at seeing those sort of overlooked gems in the creative field. So that's their sort of creative screen, if you like. And then, Sundance continues to be very characterful, very sort of deep storytelling, and we're looking at the filter there and actually thinking of some interesting unscripted space for Sundance. BBC America, I think some of the distinction between BBC America and AMC, both do sci-fi, supernatural kind of shows. The distinction is, I think, that the BBC America take on sci-fi or supernatural, true to its British roots, tends to have a bit more eccentricity, a bit more silliness, if you like. Something like, obviously, Doctor Who, but also a show like Orphan Black, which is from this great country, equally approached its subject matter, I think, with a certain kind of not taking itself too seriously, whilst having a very earnest quest around the sort of sci-fi of it. And the show that we're developing with BBC Studios, based on Terry Pratchett material called The Watch for BBC America, equally has this sort of incredible imagination, but underpinning it always a certain kind of, what I think is quite British, actually, a certain kind of silly humour. Whereas AMC's genre shows tend to be, they can be funny, but they tend not to have that as quite that silliness so foregrounded.
So those are the brands, and as a group, again, in this environment that we're in, all these media mega mergers, these huge streaming players, how do you, you are very, very relevant right now, but how do you sustain that? And in particular, what's the lane for AMC Premiere? How do you keep lifting that amid all this intensely banked and intensely marketed competition?
Our competitors have definitely bulked up, and in a relative sense, AMC Networks is not the biggest player on the block. I think and hope there'll always be a place for manufacturers, if you like, of content of all different sizes. And I think there's some distinct positive aspects that go along with not creating content on an industrial scale. I think that things that we put on our networks, we don't have a ton of slots, everything matters, everything gets tended to in a certain way, and I think that there still is a particular role that linear TV consumption has within the American, the Canadian, the global population's media diet. I think something like Planet Earth or Blue Planet 2 actually plays very well on a platform where people can come together at a certain point in time to watch a sort of epic piece of storytelling that feels momentous. I think that has something that plays well in the linear space. And I think that, I get asked a lot about how do you compete against competitors that obviously have much deeper pockets than we do. And my answer really is, if it was just about writing checks, I think everybody would have a Killing Eve and a Better Call Saul and a Walking Dead and they don't. We do, and I think some of that is to do with knowing our brands and bringing a certain kind of creative filter, our programming teams being excellent at what they do, and talent at times wanting to work in different kinds of ways. It's a project we have with Jason Segel, which is a really experimental piece of storytelling, but it actually pulls it's going to launch next year, but it will pull the audience into a game along the way. So it's really interesting to work with makers who are fascinated at using the sort of time-bound sense of linear television to create a different kind of interaction with audiences. So, I think as, we just had the upfronts a month or so ago, it's still kind of, team around there, budgets are coming in. I think there's a lot of, as you see the graphs of how many scripted shows there are, you see a share shift, you see scripted shows on linear TV going down, scripted shows on streaming services going up. I think there aren't many premium drama networks out there that advertisers can advertise on today. There's really FX and AMC. So we have a really nice vitality both in price and volume in the advertising world. And as I say, we don't have a ton of networks to ask, to lobby for at times of renegotiation with our affiliate partners. So in a business sense, our size actually can play to our strength in some ways. We're doing okay so far. We're a $3 billion company. We continue to diversify our revenue, so 25% of it now comes from our studio activity, meaning how we exploit the rights of the IP that we own, and we increasingly do own our IP. So there's a lot of different ways we're playing.
This is, you bring me exactly to my next question, which is, yes, it's a smaller player, but you're a publicly traded company. So in your role, how does that sort of play in for you? How much are you thinking about day-to-day a shareholder versus a viewer?
I do think that there's something that is not a bad thing to have to continue to grow your bottom line, that's visible. I think that the distinction between shareholder and audience is probably less divergent than you might think. I think if we're not doing things that are right for our audience, clearly it's not going to be right for our business in the long run. We are investing in our OTT platforms, our direct-to-consumer platforms, in a way that does show the sort of hockey stick trajectory, and our board and our shareholders are fully on board with that. But yeah, we are certainly held to a very transparent AOI growth on a quarterly basis. I think it kind of, we were discussing yesterday, I think it does kind of keep you honest.
You mentioned this a moment ago, seeing gold where others don't, and I just want to point out, you said this earlier this year to another publication, that the company is built on 3 rejected scripts that the smartest and richest people making television at the time did not pick up. Mad Men, Breaking Bad, and The Walking Dead. So kind of incredible. But how do you keep that spirit of discovery? Because obviously you're not directing your team, go find the apples on the ground. That's not a strategy. So how do you keep that spirit of discovery even as you're very much more established now in this space?
Yeah. Kill Eve is another one that was rejected. Yeah. So I do, I think, we have a great team. I don't know that there's a formula. I think that the brands and the platforms and increasingly the ways in which as a company we have more sort of joined up thinking, holistic thinking around our platforms continues to energize and give our teams and our staff, I think, a sort of jolt of electricity